Edward's eye rapidly swept the track. He was a good engineer, for even under that awful strain he had the presence of mind to shut down the steam in order to save it when running down grade without brake pressure. And never once while running did he allow power to take over the speed, a fault that most early young engineers under excitement do. At this time the snow began to descend, and in that particular light that settles on the earth caused by the snow, Edward saw something in a backward glance that made his blood freeze and almost caused his heart to stop beating. On the top of one of the cars of the rear train was a tall white figure of a man gesticulating wildly. While he could see a white form in the cab, a terrible thought flashed through his mind. The train, the peculiar condition, it was the Phantom Train. The Phantom Train.
PC Pod. It's in the name.
Well, this podcast is gotten weirder by the hour.
Yeah.
Just when you think, Luke, that you figured it out, it just gets stranger.
Sure does.
Everything from reptile creatures living underground to UFOs flying overhead.
Right. To the big guy out in the woods.
That's right. We've come a long way in this podcast, and sometimes we like to do a members-only episode on some of the weirder stuff that we find out there. And we teased this a little bit on the Dr. Heiser episode. We asked him about what does he think about the technology that comes with some of these hauntings. It's strange. It's not just like a ghost comes out of the woods. It's an actual ship or a train, some sort of technology that seems to be behaving like a spiritual being would behave.
It reminds me of, it's kind of like when you hear about Civil War battles going on and being reenacted, right? Or it's ghostly Civil War battles, not like the reenactments where like your uncle and your cousins go and they dress up and camp out. Not that one, but like you end up at Gettysburg and there's a ghostly battle happening. It almost feels like a time loop, like there's an echo or it's on a loop, and it kind of gets stuck there. And actually, it's funny, we had talked about wanting to do this episode to talk about ghost trains and ghost ships, and actually had a member reach out about a property in San Francisco or in the Bay Area where there's now, I believe, an apartment complex where there used to be an old train tracks. There's no longer tracks there, no longer trains there, but people still hear trains and train whistles and trains coming down the track, even though it hasn't been used in decades and decades. So there's something there. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't think we're going to explain what it is, but I think it's interesting to look at because it's not a new phenomenon. This is something that you can look back and find back through the centuries, whether it be ghost ships, maybe like the most mysterious and famous, like the Flying Dutchman, which of course was brought back and made famous by the Pirates of the Caribbean series. They actually had the Dutchman in the movies, but these things made the news and flabbergasted people when hundreds of years ago, and it's still happening today, as we heard from our members, that people are still seeing things. I think when I was looking this up, Nate, I saw that people had seen a ghost ship on the Great Lakes, and it was a CNN article of all things. I wish I'd try to debunk it, but it was pretty fascinating to know that that's still happening. We can get into talking about some of the scientific explanations for some of these things that you can actually explain, but then there's ones you can't, and those are the ones that we want to look at today.
Yeah, and we always pour through the archives. We're always pouring through old newspaper accounts and reports, trying to find sort of clues to our past of like whether it be giant skeletons, Bigfoot encounters, or UFO encounters, actually. But this is something that we have heard on our show, too. I remember our friend Adam, who came on the show from Canada, lives up in Newfoundland. Remember he told the story about his grandma?
Yeah.
She told him about the ghost trains that used to come through up there at night. And so it's strange because some of these ships, and these trains, it's almost like they're stuck, like you said, in a time where they're on this loop and they keep going. But there's documented accounts of these things, and we're going to read a couple of those to you today and give you guys something to just ponder when you think about, are these things true?
Yeah.
But if you want to become a member of the show, you can listen to this episode and many more. We also have a bunch of members episodes coming up. We have 2 police officers that had a run-in with a Wendigo, a gentleman who saw a mountain giant years ago, and a naval officer who was on the ship, the Nimitz, when the famous UFO was recorded. So become a member, blurrycreatures.com/members, and listen to these. Thank you.
The history of our Earth is so different from what we can imagine.
The Smithsonian, that if they found out about a large skeleton somewhere, was to go get it.
I'm going to assume at least one person is right, because if one person's right, it busts the paradigm.
It all goes back to the fallen cherub. And the problem with the modern day church, they have a very truncated view of the supernatural.
This backdrop that's just pregnant with all kinds of meaning associated with this Mount Hermon event.
Welcome to Blurry Creatures.
And this guy defects from the kingdom. That's a big deal.